Welcome to Chapter 11, Delinquency Prevention and Juvenile Justice Today. When we're talking about delinquency prevention, we're referring to preventing juvenile delinquency. What are the means that we're going to use to do this? And this is different for some people. Means different things to different people. And correctional measures are often referred to as delinquency control or repression. But most often, delinquency prevention refers to intervening in young people's lives before they engage in the delinquency in the first place. And there are a number of ways that exist to classify delinquency prevention. So there are home-based programs. And with home-based programs, we are looking at, I just wanted to make sure, you guys, I'm sorry. There's just always, these slides are never in order very well. So with home-based programs, we're talking about support for families in homes can really look like different things. There can be home visitations, nurse-family partnerships, maybe simply parenting skills. That can be a part of support, family support. And it's been shown as being successful in preventing juvenile delinquency if we start to improve parenting skills. So Oregon Social Learning Center is an example of this type of program. Preschool is also a early prevention, and preschool is normally happening between the ages of 3 and 5. Bear with me, here we go. Between the ages 3 and 5, and they're geared toward preparing children for grade school. And some key features of preschool programs are developmentally appropriate curriculum, many cognitive-based activities, parenting activities, and there's some well-known preschool programs. Man, there are so many out there everywhere. Preschool, child parent centers, any sort of early childhood learning centers, all very important. Oh gosh, here's all the slides. So let's talk about prevention of delinquency in the teenage years. I think that this is a huge time. And there are a number of programs. First, let's talk about mentoring. So mentoring is the involvement of non-professional volunteers to spend time with at-risk youth. There has been federal mentoring programs that have been... I'm sorry, guys. My dog is walking around me, so let me get her ready. All right. So federal mentoring programs are designed by the Office of Juvenile and Delinquency Prevention, the federal program, and mentoring programs are really found to be effective for the most part. We also have school-based programs, and schools might not be able to eliminate delinquency really single-handedly, but a number of viable alternatives to these operations can aid in a community-wide effort to reduce the problem of juvenile crime. So programs based on innovation have really been found to work, and programs based on increased social confidence have not been really geared at working. So, sorry about that. We took a little pause there. So some of the school programs that are working are more based on innovative ways within the specific schools. So that's important to look at the population that's being served. We also know that job training is important. So there has to be effectiveness of having after-school job training. And that is hard to do when we're talking about after school. So there is research to indicate that it might be associated with delinquency and substance abuse, these after school programs. It's just really hard to know from program to program. But some of these are Job Corps or Youth Build USA. Someday, my class, I will keep these slides going with my talking. Certainly, you have time to go back and play these over. So let's talk about juvenile justice today. So there's two distinct categories of offenders. One is delinquents, and these are those that commit an act in violation of the penal code. And then status offenders, and these are characterized in state statutes as persons or children in need of supervision. So a lot of states will call it a PINS program or a CHINS program. I think CHINS is what we call it here in Washington. So all states have these statutes, these juvenile codes and special court structure to accommodate these children that are in trouble. And most of the police agencies also will have juvenile components. So more than 3,000 juvenile courts and correctional facilities are located within our country. So about 2/3 of all children arrested are referred to juvenile court. And under the parens patriae philosophy, procedures are informal and non-adversarial. Parens patriae is that word that basically means that the court system can step in and act as the parent when needed. And so this process of the parens patriae and this process is listed here on this nice graphic that will help you guys understand it. So it begins, of course, with police investigation. So police have the authority to investigate and decide to release or commit to juvenile court. So detention is the process that police decide what's going to happen, and they're going to file a petition, and then youth is referred to juvenile court. Then there's a detention hearing, and the detention hearing is held to determine whether to remand them or not. So pretrial procedures, and this is a hearing where juveniles are informed of their right to trial, plea, charges, and consequences. The term adjudication is the trial stage of the juvenile court. Disposition is when the court must decide what should be done to treat the child if they're found guilty. There is a wide range of dispositions from reprimand to probation to an institutional commitment. Again, this is another bifurcated process. The dispositional hearing is separate from the adjudication or the trial. Oftentimes treatment is involved, which, probation is the most commonly used formal sentence for juveniles. And more than 100,000 youths are in some form of correctional institution currently. And some components of the adult and juvenile criminal processes are similar, and other components are different. Some of the similarities are discretion, Miranda warnings, procedural safeguards, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And some differences are the purpose really of juvenile court is protection and treatment, not punishment. Age determines your jurisdiction, and it's not considered criminal. It can be very informal and private, no constitutional right to a jury. So let's talk about this juvenile justice process and strategy and what we're looking at. Gosh, I did it again, you guys. I did it again. Just leave you guys hanging. I am so sorry. I really apologize. All right, so let's talk about prevention. So early risk factors include low intelligence and attainment, impulsiveness, poor parental supervision, parental conflict, social disorganization, and living in poverty, deprived neighborhoods. And these early childhood programs have definitely been effective in tackling some of these risk factors, Head Start, Smart Start, nurse-family partnership models. And also intervention is important. And intervention is designed to ward off teenage use considered at higher risk for engaging in petty delinquency or using drugs and alcohol or associating with antisocial peers. So we have the Big Brother, Big Sister programs and other initiatives that have been developed. Graduated sanction is an idea or what happens with juveniles, and it talks about immediate sanctions for nonviolent offenders, more community-based diversion, and day treatments. And intermediate sanctions such as probation and electronic monitoring will target repeat offenders. And secured institutional care is reserved for repeat serious offenders. There are many programs, institutional programs, that are doing a really great job because most people believe that incarceration, especially with youth, is overused and is definitely overused for nonviolent offenders. So there's this concept of deinstitutionalization, which was established by the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Act of 1974. It's continuing to grow, both in juvenile and adult court. So some alternative courts that have been developed for youth, drug courts, because there are about 451 courts around the country, 48 MARC courts are currently being planned. There is a drug court being planned in our county, actually, Grant County Drug Court, that is in the planning portion. There's also can be types of teen courts, and those teen courts are really an alternative to traditional juvenile courts. There are 1,048 courts in operations in 49 states that are considered teen courts. And these courts are serving an estimated 110,000 to 125,000 youth offenders each year. So teen courts encourage the community to take an active role. There might be volunteers that come in from the community. It saves the community money, it's timely, and there, of course, is also accountability. So what does the future look like for juvenile delinquency prevention? This is definitely a subject of contentious debate. There are pros and cons, and some want measures to get tough and be more punitive, and others want more rehabilitation and treatment. But despite limitations, treatment programs provided in the modern juvenile court is definitely playing a central role in response to this most serious delinquents. Short chapter. I'm so sorry I skipped around with those slides. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.